not a board member or the CEO, Dr. Santelises and her staff, please turn your video off. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is on the call. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. I will go through the roll call for each vote. Vice Chair Roberts. Thank you. Commissioner Coy.
Commissioner Coy, present.
Commissioner Esposito.
Commissioner Esposito, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawson. Commissioner Muhammad.
Commissioner Muhammad, present.
Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Sally.
Commissioner Sally, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Commissioner Slater Harrington, present.
Thank you. And I am also present. That is 8 present with 2 absent. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Muhammad?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously with those members who are present. We will now have the presentation of colors by the Patterson High School Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, followed by a performance from the Yorkwood Elementary School Choir. Please join me in standing.
Colors. Color guard. Oh, colors.
That was a nice drum addition at the end. Thank you, Dr. Ross. You all may be seated in the Yorkwood Elementary School Choir. Again, under the direction of Dr. Rodriguez Ross. Can we give our young people another round of applause? Thank you. It is not easy performing in front of audiences, especially one as large as this tonight. So we're very proud of the work that they're doing. In addition to the JROTC from Patterson High School, can we give them another round of applause? Thank you. So Dr. Ross, I'll give you some time to transition. Absolutely. That also gives commissioners time to. And what a beautiful village we see. So the folks that are moving out, are we parents, family members of Yorkwood? Yes, let's give them a round of applause as well. You know, it takes a village to raise our young people. So while they're moving, let's just go ahead and celebrate each of them as they're going. Marvelous Sakore, Aliana Palmer, Connor Harvey, Kamaya Smith, Heaven Robinson, Leah Mayola, Kendall Houston, Trevor Wilson, Charlotte Hopkins, Bella Showell, Oganova, Winter Woods, Paige Jennings, Pam Ogunjobi, Andrea Harvey, Dylan Dickerson, Madison Jackson Bosworth, Camille Miller, Chase Lowry, Brooke Oliver, Malia Price, Jay Dixon, Janora Colvin, Teron Thomas, Patterson Rhodes, Neve Johnson, Kinsley McCray, Jamori Sharon, Kaylee Uzezi, Leah Edwards, and John King. And then our cadets from Patterson High School, Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Darius Brown, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Jefferson Argueta, Cadet Major Shiflett, and Cadet Major Oliveira. Let's give them another round of applause. Our young people always deserve applause. And thank you to Dr. Ross again for your incredible and tireless work. Thank you. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Commissioner Kenyatta Bay for tonight's moment of silence.
I would like to take the time to recognize the passing of city school employees. These individuals were committed to supporting our students through their work. The greater city school community will fondly remember these employees. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to the employees' families and friends. First, it is with deep regret we inform you of the passing of Freddie McKinney. Mr. McKinney started his career with city schools on September 4th, 2013, where he served the staff and students for 11 years and 5 months at North Bend Elementary Middle School. A custodial worker, Mr. McKinney unfortunately departed on February 21st, 2024, and will be missed by his family, friends, and city schools. Second, it is with deep regret we inform you of the passing of Beverly Williams. Miss Williams started her career with City Schools on December 30th, 1974, where she served the staff and students for 49 years and 2 months at Margaret Brent Elementary Middle School. As a secretary, Miss Williams unfortunately departed on March 4th, 2024, and will be missed by her family, friends, and City Schools. I would like to take the time to recognize the passing of City School students. Each one of these individuals were a part of our school communities. They will be remembered fondly by the greater City School community. Tonight, we send our deepest condolences to their friends and families. Home and Hospital Program. Sarah Al-Marzuk. Sarah Al-Marzuk was a second grader at City Neighborhoods Elementary. She was a fun-loving, creative, and well-liked student whose favorite subject was math. Sarah loved her family, especially her younger brother. Her eyes immediately lit up every time she talked about him. Drawing, coloring, dancing were a few of her favorite things to do. Sarah was very witty, loved to joke, and recited TikTok videos very often. She had a positive attitude and outgoing personality. Sarah will be greatly missed by her family, school community, and friends. Patterson High School. Selena Merritt Santiago. Selena Merritt Santiago was an 11th grader student in the low incidence program at Patterson High School. In class, she always portrayed a positive attitude toward her classmates and teachers. Selena was very respectful, diligent, and very interested in her own learning. She listened attentively and made a solid effort to avoid distractions. During her free break time, Selena loved to spend her time doing art, drawing and coloring, and listening to music. Selena made smart decisions, admitted mistakes, and listened to opportunities to improve. Hollandtown. Yimi Paz Gutierrez and Angel Paz Gutierrez, siblings. Yimi and Angel Paz Gutierrez made their way from Guatemala to Highlandtown community in September 2022. Yimi, a sweet and soft-spoken girl, left an indelible mark on everyone who had the pleasure of knowing her. Her eagerness to excel in school and her role as a caring big sister to Angel were truly admirable. Admirable. Angel, an outgoing and beloved young boy, brought joy to all who crossed his path. His infectious laughter and friendly demeanor made a cherished friend among his peers. Always accompanied by his big sister, he had a knack for brightening the lives of teachers and students alike. Let's take a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bay. Is there a motion to approve the prior open session minutes?
So move, Robert.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. All those in favor, Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Yes.
I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously with the members who are present. Is there a motion to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Yes.
I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously. So again, good evening to everyone and welcome to this board meeting. And tonight, it looks like we have many members of our Muslim community here. So we are in a very holy period of time, considered the Ramadan period. So Ramadan Mubarak to you all that are present. And to everyone listening in our community, folks who are listening virtually on Teams as well. In March, we celebrate Women's History Month. Can the women in the room make some noise? Oh, okay. All right. And it is also Music in Our Schools Month. So with Women's History Month, it is a time that we reflect on the women who pioneer, shatter glass ceilings, and continue to inspire us with their courage, their wisdom, and their compassion. Throughout history, women have been the driving force behind progress, change, and innovation. Their strength and achievements improve many facets of our lives. From the bottom of my heart, I thank the women in my life, especially my dear mother who has passed on, but I know that each and every day she is with me and I make her proud each and every day. That is my goal. And all the women in my life were shaping me into the person that I am professionally today. As we honor our women, we also honor the invaluable role of music education in helping to shape young minds. Music in Our Schools Month sheds light on the importance of music. Music is a universal language that brings joy, creativity, and inspiration into each and every one of our lives. From learning to play instruments, to singing in choirs, to digital and recorded music, music education enhances students' cognitive skills, creativity, and emotional well-being. Not only do we want our students to be smart and well-rounded academically, but we want our young people to be good-hearted people. And we know that music allows them to be just that. So the board thanks our educators like Dr. Ross, who was here tonight, who nurture each student's unique talent and foster a lifelong love for the arts. Can we give it up for both of those celebrations this month? Last week on March 6th, the board hosted a student board forum. It's one in a series of forums that we've been having. Last year, I want to say the year before, and certainly this year, where we are engaging multiple stakeholders throughout our city. The forum allowed students, however, in this particular night, the opportunity to share their opinion with the board on policies IKA and policy ADF, and share student perspectives on student wholeness. Our student commissioner, Commissioner Lawson, chaired the event alongside Commissioners Slater Harrington, Esposito, Kenyatta Bay, and Mohammed. And tonight, Commissioner Lawson is a bit under the weather. He's been quite busy. He's been quite the busy young person. So he's taken some time to get himself together. So we wish him well. We're keeping him in our thoughts and prayers. But to any of the commissioners that were in the student forum, Mohammed, Slater Harrington, Kenyatta Bay, Sally, would any of you like to lift anything up from that student forum? Some of the takeaways that we received from that event? Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Well, first, I'd like to say We have flowers in our garden that we really do need to be proud of. The way these students are organized, their thoughtfulness, their input is invaluable. And what they demonstrated would probably put most organized legislators to shame. And so I really do appreciate what they have done. I was there. I was blown away. I was there last year also, and they totally blew me away. I mean, they're really, really on point. Be proud. Be proud of the village that you have created. And that's all.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, anyone else want to share their thoughts? Any other commissioners? Commissioner Muhammad?
Appreciate it. I just want to highlight the fact that our students' commitment to their success is amazing because their insight into our policies, their awareness of the impact that it will have on them is incredible. When we look at the work that the district is doing around wholeness to make sure that our students are encouraged to be at school every day, their insight allowed us to really shape what our committee is doing and their ability to follow up and schedule time with us to ensure that we are representing their needs is one that's commendable. So we want to thank our student body for all of its work, and we want to thank the district as a whole for making these opportunities available to the board. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Muhammad. Commissioner Esposito, I believe that is your hand that I see. Is that correct?
Yes, that's me. Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciated being able to participate in it. And I think the questions that the students asked amongst our group, I was in the same group as Commissioner Muhammad, those prompts were really strong because like the conversations that they had after those prompts really gave us like a lot of valuable information and insight.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Esposito. Appreciate that feedback. If you want to share your feedback on policy, any policy under review, but specifically policy IKA and policy ADF, you can submit using the board policy feedback form. Submissions will be reviewed by district personnel and other subject matter experts in addition to the Board of School Commissioners. To learn more, please visit the board's policy webpage on the City Schools website. Speaking of feedback, the district continues to host its community budget review meetings for the 24-25. We call it FY25. Now, can you all believe we're going into 2025? Can you all believe that? For that year budget, that's next year's budget, the district will host community budget review meetings until March 22nd. Stakeholders can also participate in a budget feedback survey until March 29th. And so the board encourages you to join the budget development process and share your thoughts, as they're all critically important. Next school year, the district will not receive ESSER federal funding. This is a critical thing that it is important for all stakeholders within our community to understand. We will no longer receive ESSER federal funding, and that was provided to us due to the COVID pandemic. So we need you to help us, and we need you to help your individual schools, but we need you to help the district, the system as a whole, to prioritize funds in areas that directly support you. Your feedback affects the direction that the budget will take. To get involved, check with your school leader about your school's budget sessions and visit the City Schools website for more information. Next, in Commissioner Lawson's absence, we want to highlight that applications are now open for candidates who want to be the 2024-2025 Student Commissioner or an ASCBC, which is the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City officer. Middle and high school students who are passionate about student advocacy or are interested in having a direct role within governance are encouraged to apply before April 8th. The Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City and our student commissioner represent Baltimore's youth and district level decision-making. They listen to the needs of fellow students around the city and elevate their concerns to the school board. What I want to also highlight is this past year was the first year that we had a citywide election that elected our first student commissioner. They're not the first student commissioner, but they're the first student commissioner to be elected at large in that way. And so we're looking for more students to get involved in that way, as they now are one of the elected members on our board. And they vote amongst all of the commissioners that serve here sitting tonight on most matters that are presented to the board. So for more information on this student commissioner election and ASCBC elections, please follow our city schools web pages, our social media platforms, but more information is forthcoming, so please stay tuned. The board is also excited to announce that we will host our first off-site board meeting of the school year. We're excited about that. Instead of folks coming to this headquarters building, we will be at the Reach Partnership School on April 23rd at 5:30 p.m. In East Baltimore. We hope that by shifting the meeting location, we can increase engagement and accessibility for our stakeholders. More details about the off-site board meeting will be available as we draw closer to the meeting date, but at least we all know that it will not be here on the 23rd of April. We will be at the Reach Partnership School, and that is off of Harford Road. So please stay informed by visiting the board meetings webpage on the city schools website. And finally, as we are in an election year, I'd like to remind the public that the board is a nonpartisan body and does not endorse any candidate for political office. While individual commissioners may have interests in specific candidates as residents of the city, state, and our country, the board does not and will not engage in political endorsements or campaign initiatives. We are laser focused on our strategic priorities and ensuring improved outcomes for each and every one of our students. Thank you. The board acknowledges a donation of $10,000 to Furley Elementary School from the Academy of Sports and Outdoors to support the community and the students' academic performance. Is there a motion to approve the PEP and quasi-judicial matters?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
Second, Sally.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts,
Yes.
Commissioner Coy,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay,
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sally,
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington,
Yes.
and I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously. With the members who are present, I will now turn it over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments.
Thank you very much, Chair McFadden. Good evening, everyone. I am going to invite Chief Emily Nielsen for this evening's PEP agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Good evening, commissioners. On our PEP tonight, if you are here in person, please stand when I read your name so we can recognize you. And if you are joining us virtually, you can, I think, still turn on your camera so that we can recognize you that way. Appointments from the Office of the Chief of Schools. Recommended that Kimberly Davis, currently interim principal at Midtown Academy Elementary Middle, be appointed principal at Midtown Academy Elementary Middle effective March 14th, 2024. Congratulations, Principal Davis. See you online.
Thank you.
And recommended that Shaniqua Winfield, currently educational associate at Vanguard Collegiate Middle School, be appointed assistant principal at Pimlico Elementary Middle School effective July 1st, 2024. Congratulations to everyone on our PEP tonight.
Thank you, Chief Nielsen. As has become our practice, I will read some background on our one principal appointment this evening, Ms. Kimberly Campbell Davis. Ms. Kimberly Campbell Davis was born and raised in Baltimore City and joined city schools 18 years ago. Prior to serving as interim principal at Midtown Academy, Ms. Davis served as assistant principal at Furman L. Templeton Preparatory Academy and spent a short period as a resident principal at North Bend Elementary Middle School via the New Leaders Cohort. Principal Davis holds a bachelor's degree in social work from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and a master's degree in administration and supervision from Johns Hopkins University. Congratulations, Principal Campbell Davis. So I would officially like to begin this evening with some very exciting news about the continued significant progress in city schools. Every fall, the state conducts a kindergarten readiness assessment, known in short as the KRA, which tracks the preparedness of our youngest students for learning in kindergarten. I'm happy to report that in the latest KRA results, city school students who attended a city school's pre-K or pre-kindergarten or Judy Center outperformed the state of Maryland overall in kindergarten readiness. Yes, I know. In fact, all of our student groups equaled or outperformed the same groups at the state level.
Would you say that one more time, Dr. Thompson?
I will say it one more time, Chair. All of our student groups equaled or outperformed the same groups at the state level.
That deserves celebration.
Mm. So good to see you, Mr. Ali. I would now like to invite our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Joan Dabrowski, and Executive Director of the Office of Early Learning, Crystal Francis, to describe our young people's achievements in more detail. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, Chair McFadden, Commissioners, Dr. Santelises. I'm Joan Dabrowski, Chief Academic Officer. I'm joined by my colleague, Crystal Francis, the Executive Director of Early Learning. Let's just say we are thrilled to be here this evening to provide more details around our kindergarten readiness assessment. Crystal will get us started, and then we will talk more together. So,
Good evening, everyone. So here to present on the KRA, also known as the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. There are 4 domains that we look at: language and literacy, mathematics, social foundations, and physical well-being and motor development. Next slide. Thank you. So this slide just talks about some of the important things that we measure in KRA. We're always looking to see what our students have their strengths in, and always making sure that we're sharing that with our families. And it really does allow us to, in the beginning of the school year, figure out what targeted information that we need to make sure that we are presenting to our students for the remainder of the school year. Next slide. So we always want to make sure that we are grounding what happens in pre-K and kindergarten and tying that to our long-term outcomes. So our district goals, of course, we know literacy, math, graduation, and wholeness. And here we just want to show the trajectory of what happens when we make sure that our students are prepared in kindergarten. Of course, there's a tie to 3rd grade reading, our college and career standards, and beyond. And so this data point shows us that our students, when they are demonstrating readiness on KRA, are 4.8 times more likely to demonstrate proficiency on that 3rd grade ELA MCAP. This slide shows us the percentage of our students who are from our own city schools pre-K program. So 63% of our students who are KRA test takers are coming from our city schools program, our city schools pre-K, or our city schools Judy centers.
So I'll jump in here and ask that. So as we talk about the data, again, we're going to be zooming in on that 63% of test takers who participated in one of our pre-K programs. So if we go to the next slide, here's a really powerful headline to take away tonight, that the students who attend our early learning programs outperform the state, as Dr. Santelises just shared with us. So 46% of the city school students who attended one of our pre-Ks or one of our Judy centers demonstrated that readiness, whereas the state hit a 44%. So again, it's really powerful to be able to look at data and dig into data and see the impacts of some of our programs. So what we know locally is that our pre-K programs, our Judy Center programs continue to be the best way to prepare students for kindergarten here in city schools. So with that, let's dig in a little bit more because again, when we look at all the student groups that are represented in this data, it's really exciting to see that they have either equaled or have higher readiness than their state level peers. So when we look at our Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, white, and economically disadvantaged students, all of those student groups outperformed their peers across the state in the same groups. Our multilingual learners, which is a surging group of young people in our schools, has not only increased by 9% from 15 to 24, but doubling the state's readiness at 12%. So again, our students, our multilingual learners showing 24% readiness as compared to the state at 12%. And our students with disabilities increased by 7 percentage points from 11% to 18%, which equals the state's readiness. I want to signal that that is particularly powerful, knowing that we have seen a huge increase in the number of early learners needing special services and supports. So it is a huge success to see that even with larger numbers, we are closing the gap in terms of our students' readiness in kindergarten. So in general, what we can say from all of this is that our students are more prepared than they have been in quite some time for kindergarten. So when we dug in and looked at where the pandemic had really impacted our students and families, we see that we have increased 16 percentage points from school year 21-22 today. So we've shifted from 30% of readiness to 46% readiness. In that same time period, the state moved 4 percentage points. We've moved 16%. So again, it is an indication that what we are doing for our youngest learners is working, it's making a difference, it's having an impact. And so if we go to the next slides, we're just going to dig into what this looks like and how we analyze the data so we can be really clear with everyone. So there are 4 points we're looking at on these graphs. The top line in that bright blue is the state of Maryland. So you can see, again, what we tried to do is signal where we were in that first year of school year 1920, and then we have that big blank space of the pandemic. And you can see where the state moved from 47% down to 40%, where our young people in the city schools pre-K is represented is the red. So again, where you see that 44%, you can see how much the impact of the pandemic hit our young people as we went down to 30% in that first testing in 21-22 after we returned to in-person learning. The next line represents all of our city schools kindergartners. That's the dotted line that you see. And then the gray represents the prior care. So students who came to us from other early learning settings. So I just want to call that out because as we go into the graphs, that's the same sort of areas that we'll be looking at. And you can see, again, those students who attended our pre-kindergarten and Judy centers and represented in the red, you can just see the way that line is accelerating forward. We go to the next slide. We'll take this same look when we think about race and ethnicity. And again, the first there on the left is our Black African American students. You can see our Judy Center students going from 40 to 46%, our Hispanic Latino going from 27 to 32%, and our white students going from 63 to 72%. So again, outperforming their peers across the state. We go to the next slide. If we look now at our student groups, economically disadvantaged, multilingual learners, and our students with disabilities. Again, tracking that red line, we see our economically disadvantaged students outpacing their peers. We see that huge surge in that performance around our multilingual learners, and we see the gap has been closed for our students with disabilities. Again, powerful data when we think about the work that our young people that our students and families experienced through the pandemic and the recovery efforts and the accelerated improvements we're seeing here in this data. And so it's with that that I'm going to return back to Crystal Francis, who's been leading the Office of Early Learning for the past 9 years, to understand what is driving these results in the work that that our teachers who work with our youngest students. What can we learn from this data to inform us going forward?
Thank you, Chief. So first, I do just want to send a big shout out to all of the staff in early learning and all of our pre-K teachers, because they are really at the heart of all of this. I told them all to watch today. So what's driving these results is we really did a shift in our professional learning during that school year 21-22. We were really coming back from the pandemic and condensing what we were focusing on. We really wanted to make sure that we were focusing on foundational literacy, foundational math, those foundational skills. All of early childhood education was really impacted by the pandemic. So we saw that we had to kind of shift how we were doing and what we were focusing on with our teachers. We also ensured that our special education teachers and our general education teachers work side by side. Within our office, we have special ed and general ed all together. And so it really does make a difference in ensuring that even our special ed students are also receiving the general ed curriculum and receiving access to that. The next thing that we did was shift in the support and feedback that we provide to schools. Beginning in school year 21-22, we developed some rubrics and tools that we use with school leaders, and we began doing classroom visits and walkthroughs with school leaders. And so that first school year, 21-22, we actually visit 50% of our pre-K classrooms. And then every year since then, we have a different focus. So this year, we looked at all of the schools that had that were lower on our KRA. And so we are prioritizing going to visit their pre-K classrooms during quarter 3 and quarter 4 of this school year. Next slide. We shifted how we did teacher planning. So it's really important to ensure that we are doing vertical planning between our pre-K and kindergarten teachers. So every quarter, we bring together a group of pre-K and K teachers teams from schools, and we have the pre-K teachers bring their data and the kindergarten teachers bring their data, and they're able to do a data analysis and then plan together. So one is able to inform the other. And so we've seen that that's been really powerful, and people just being able to kind of sit at the table to really think about what are the things that they need to do in order to prepare their students to go into kindergarten. And again, you see that targeted focus on small group instruction. We know that that's where we really want to make sure that we're getting to the meat of the information for our students. So continuing to bring that to the forefront. Next slide. Our Judy centers, which we love here in Baltimore City, we have 14 of those Judy centers here. We've continued to do really deep dives and analysis on those KRA items, ensuring that we're doing really intentional planning, really making sure that we're focusing the planning that we're doing in our parent workshops and tying that back to the areas that we know we want to focus on with our students. We have lots of partnerships in the Judy Center. That's how we are able to move so much of this work. And so we have partners such as Literacy Lab. We've partnered with our friends at Improving Ed to provide bedtime in the boxes, but we make sure that we're bringing in all of those additional resources. And I have to shout out the dads programming that we do in our Judy centers. We heard from our dads that they really wanted to be involved. And so we did programming for them, and our dads showed up and showed out. So you could go to any Judy center in the city and you'll see a really intentional dads programming there.
Can you illuminate for members of the public and just for everyone what a Judy Center is?
Yes. So a Judy Center is a comprehensive wraparound support. It's not a place, it's a support that we do for children and families 0 to 5 within a school community. So within a school that is usually a Title I school that has pre-K classrooms there, the Judy Centers get additional funding and have 2 full-time staff there to provide any support to the children or families of those kiddos who are coming into that school. So our whole goal is to ensure that when families are whole, that their students are able to be whole once they get into school. Okay. We also have our extended learning opportunities. So we have Camp Curiosity, which is our STEAM-based program that we have now done for 3 years. It is a district-wide summer learning opportunity for rising pre-K and rising kindergarten students. This past school year, we had about 300 students at 14 different locations in the district. And we've continued to do increased family engagement opportunities because we cannot do early childhood education without also involving our families. So our Judy Center play groups are very involved. We have Find Your Way to Pre-K, which is now in its 3rd year, I think, where we just kind of open up different opportunities in the city. And for free, we support families being able to go and have these learning opportunities. So finally, in the Kerwin legislation, one of the pieces was to do an independent study on the KRA to check for racial and cultural bias. MSD recently presented on this at their board meeting, but they did find that there was some bias in the assessment, particularly for against bilingual and our multilingual learners. So the report is linked there, but MSCE did share their plans to move away from the KRA in the future. And so they are in the process of procuring something else. And so we are just waiting for them to share what they will be using and make sure that we are going to implement that whenever they let us know what that assessment will be.
And I think we're happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
First of all, this is a comment more than a question. You have proven that when the village comes together, it can't be stopped. We were raised by the pandemic. It was scorched earth and worldwide. And for you to be able to lift your heads up and say, we have a new crop moving forward, is a movement, I think, that deserves a whole lot of recognition. You know, there used to be an old greeting. I can't remember what tribe it was, but they used to say, how are the children? And according to you, the children have got a good chance. Peace.
To staff, are we tracking cohorts year by year? So looking at what and is it useful to do that, right? So are we looking at the students in kindergarten 2021 that should be in 3rd grade this year, right? Are we tracking their progress over time to really see any correlation between what happens in pre-K kindergarten to when they get to 3rd, 4th grade? Is that something that we're doing?
So that is, oh, I'm on.
It's delayed.
Oh, okay. That is one of the things that we did start doing once we actually knew that we had enough data to be able to do that. So I actually have been working with my colleagues in OAA to start pulling that 3rd grade data for us. So this is, I think, maybe the 2nd or 3rd year that we've had that formerly PARCC, but now MCAP score. So we're always looking to 3rd grade because for us, that's the next closest thing. So that's how we are always measuring what we're doing. And additionally, when we're even thinking about our district goals, again, because 3rd grade is kind of the next thing for us, we're always back mapping from 3rd grade to what we need to do in pre-K. So that's how we go into all of our data conversations. That's how we're thinking about where we land pre-K in the spectrum. So we're always thinking about what our next jump is, which for us is that 3rd grade data.
Great. Well, I also want to say thank you to Executive Director Francis for her leadership over the years. This is not a 1-year body of work, but one that you have led for quite some time. And since you asked all of the early learning educators, teachers to be watching, I want to shout out every single pre-K teacher. And I want to invite the public, if you have yet to visit a Judy Center, When I have a rough day, they are my favorite place to go. And I had a chance to go over to John Rura a few months ago to see one of the sessions with dads, and it was a thing of beauty. So that we know when people like to paint our community in one way, when you go to a Judy Center and you see dads and moms and aunties caring about our youngest learners, it gives another picture of our city. And I would just want to again thank our early learning team, every single pre-K teacher in the district who works every day, Chief Dabrowski, for your leadership and support of this work as well. So congratulations, everyone. And next, we're going to continue. And in response to the Office of Inspector General's 2022 report on grading in city schools, the district contracted with Alvarez and Marsal, A&M, a leading international consulting firm, to conduct a performance review of our grading policies, administrative regulations and practices, including grade entry and changes during school year 2022-2023. It's important to note that the purpose of grading is to evaluate students' learning and performance. As such, there are many legitimate reasons to change grades due to unforeseen circumstances, data entry errors, or miscalculations resulting in an incorrect grade on a student's report card. I am pleased, again, to invite Dr. Rachel Pfeiffer, Executive Director, Academics, as well as Ingrid Gardner or Gardner? Oh, thank you. Gardner and Jim Grady from Alvarez and Marsal to report on the results of their performance review. We welcome you this evening.
Good evening, Chair McFadden, Vice Chair Roberts, Commissioners. Thank you, Dr. Santelises, for the introduction. Again, I'm Rachel Pfeiffer. I'm the Executive Director of Academics, and very pleased to have our colleagues from Alvarez and Marsal joining us today to share some of their findings. Thank you so much for putting the slides up. So I will kick us off, but then I'm going to pass it to Ingrid and to Jim to share additional information. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So as Dr. Santelises highlighted, engaging with Alvarez and Marsal to move this work forward was our keeping our commitment to do what we said we would do and to really continue the work of continuous improvement that we've committed to in the district as we think about how we get better at the work of instruction, and in this particular case, grading. So we did commit to reviewing our grades, and we looked at our grades in the 22-23 school year, engaging with Alvarez and Marsal to do an independent study that looked at all our grades in pre-K through 12 for that school year. The intent of this review was to understand where we were, what our current performance across the district looked like. We also are in the process of reviewing our grading policy as we do every 5 years. And so this review gives us the opportunity to take into account the best practices that Alvarez and Marsal highlighted for us, as well as opportunities to continue to grow we can put those into our into our policy and regulation updates to just continue to strengthen grading across the district. And so we're grateful for that opportunity. So we can go to the next slide. One of the key things that I do want to highlight, especially in light of our reviewing our grading policy, is that Alvarez and Marsal found that our grading policy here in Baltimore City is, and this is a quote, stronger and more comprehensive than many peer districts. And this has been ongoing work for us. We have continued to refine and update our policy. One of the many reasons that through our RFP process, we decided to engage with Alvarez and Marsal is because they have done similar reviews in districts like ours. And so they came to us with the experience that was really going to allow us to know where we stood and what we need to continue to grow in. And they certainly have been able to highlight for us as well opportunities for continued refinement, which we will be able to put into place. Next slide, please. So a key takeaway as we just provide an overview of this report that is that will be posted online for all to see, but Alvarez and Marsal did not find, or I should quote and say, they found no evidence of widespread grade manipulation in city schools during the 22-23 school year. As Dr. Santelices highlighted, there are times when grade changes may need to be made, but in this case, what we found was that the grade changes, what they found, excuse me, was that the grade changes were limited in their scale and impact. And this is after reviewing 18 million grades that were put into our Infinite Campus system by our teachers in pre-K through 12th grade. This was an immense study that they did, a wide review of all our grades, and they found that there were 250,000 grade changes, which is 0.02% of those 18 million, that 0.2% of those 250,000 grade changes, which are 1.4% of the total grades put in the system, were final grade changes. So we're talking about very small numbers in relation to a much broader number of grades as our teachers work hard every day, every week to put grades in the system to assess student learning. Next slide, please. Dr. Santelices has highlighted beautifully why there are many reasons why grades may need to be changed, and we are committed to providing our students with accurate grades. We want our grades to be reflective of their learning, and if they do need to be updated to allow our teachers to improve instruction, to guide students' learning with accurate information about how they're doing, we want to make sure that we're doing so in a carefully done carefully and within the bounds of our policy, and this review has highlighted the opportunities to do that. So it's my pleasure to pass it to Ingrid Gardner and Jim Grady to provide some highlights.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. Chairman McFadden, Dr. Santelices, Board of Commissioners. My name is Jim Grady. I'm with my colleague Ingrid Gardner. Thank you very much for having us here tonight to talk about an important review. We can go to the next slide. Just what I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about numbers. We're going to talk a little bit about observations, and then we're going to round out with some high-level recommendations. First, let's talk about the numbers, and Dr. Pfeiffer talked a little bit about them previously already. We looked at over 18 million records. A total of 250,000 of these records were identified as grade changes within the school's Infinite Campus data. Of that, of the 250,000, and I'll get to this in the next slide, about 107,000 of those records did not truly qualify as any grade changes. Rather, they were just technical record-keeping documentation. It did not make any changes to grades. We can go to the next slide. So there's a lot going on in this slide, but let me go through a couple high-level points. We needed to develop a population analysis and a process to get results to narrow down these grade changes, which would require us to do an evaluation based on city schools' grading policies. This chart that you're seeing is a depiction of that process and a treatment for how we dealt with each set within our analysis. Before I jump into it though, this analysis, we identified largely many grade changes shown in the audit log were either subject to school-based non-final grade change processes. Those are the ones shown in that yellow arrow in the middle. Or they just simply did not require any documentation under city schools grading policies. And those are the ones reflected in the red arrows. So let me walk you through this real briefly from going from left to right. So the left box in the blue, you'll see we started with the 250,000 grade changes within the Infinite Cap campus. Of those, we could clearly see that 143 actually impacted grades. The 107 did not. That's what I mentioned previously. There was 107,000 that had nothing to do with just more like technical inputs within the system. So once we had that broken apart, the next thing we looked at was the grade type. Was it a final grade or was it just simply a marking period or semester grade that was not marked final? And in this strata, you can see of the 143,000 grade changes, about 8,700 were final grade changes. 134,000 were just changes within the school year, marking period, what have you. We then did we did a little bit further analysis on, but I want to keep along the top line there, the 8,700, the final grades. The next thing we did was we looked at timing. From those, we saw just over 4,091 that were actually inputted as final grades after the marking period had ended. There was about 4,600 that were inputted as final before the marking period ended within the policy of city schools. So therefore, when we look at this, what's the key takeaway here? We are focused or zeroed in on those 4,091 up in the top that were final grade changes and that were done after the end of the marking period. We can go to the next slide. Before I jump into those real quick, just a few high-level observations that we saw. We did a lot of, we interviewed, we observed folks, we had some focus groups, we did some surveys, we looked at the policies, we also looked at the various documents. While several of the observations highlighted in this process, City Schools has really made some good improvements. Our focus here on these observations are more or less looking at some of the key areas that can be further enhanced. The grading policy and compliance at city schools. For example, the biggest thing we found was lack of timely grade entry. That drives the vast majority of the grade-related issues. Teachers and other city school staff noted that the lagging gradebook level entry delays timely grade finalization. Training and communication have been improved, but we can always do more of that, certainly with respect to grade policy adherence. We should continue to make investments in that. Compliance monitoring has focused mostly, or has been focused on proactively reducing late grade entries, but hasn't necessarily focused on addressing grade changes. It's more or less making sure grades are inputted as opposed to grade changes. Grade change forms we found are rarely used, were rarely used where required, and when they were used, they were at times incomplete and did not fully comply with the grading policy. So certainly some work to do there. We can go to the next slide, just rounding out the observations that we have here. Infinite Campus and the heat systems currently could be configured a little bit better to be more compatible. And then responsibility for grading policy and compliance. We found that it's across several different offices and departments, and in some cases were ill-defined or significantly limited accountability efforts. We'll go to the next slide. I'm coming back to that 4,091 number that we saw 3 slides ago. This was the area of focus here. Again, just as a reminder, this is a summary of the grade changes that were final grades and were made after the marking period had closed. Just a couple notes on this. The distribution indicates that there were 4 occurrences in which the grade was changed from a fail to a pass. One thing I wanted to note. The other thing I wanted to note is this distribution also indicates that the vast majority, over 3,500, if you will, of the 4,000 of these grade ranges were driven by late grade entry, as shown in the null to pass or the null to fail categorizations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ingrid Gardner to talk about recommendations.
Good evening, CEO Santelises, Board of Commissioners, general public. Just as Jim went over all of the observations, what I'm going to walk through really is 4 key initiatives that we've identified that would really address a lot of the issues that we've seen. So we have 4 priority initiatives that we're going to walk through today. The first is that City Schools needs to implement initiatives targeting timely grade entry. As obviously, as you can see, that's really what we have seen as the biggest factor that needs to be addressed. And so we have a few examples of what that would take, but obviously in the larger report, there are a lot more details behind what those would be. But one of those would be clarifying policy requirements related to timely grade entry and reference where and how school level personnel can access that guidance. Refreshing training sessions on the gradebook entry for teachers, and aligning those with the policy updates that are going to be made as part of our other suggestions, and then helping people identify what central location those things can be found in so that people can always know where to go to refresh if they are having questions. Also providing training tools and self-monitoring for teachers. Right now, teachers don't really have the access to be able to self-monitor in their gradebook entries to see sort of where things stand. And so this is a good opportunity for them to, if we can give them the tools to be able to do that very efficiently, might help with this late grade entry as well. So the initiative 2 would be to strengthen the technology infrastructure to support consistency and accountability. 2 big things that I'll just mention that we've seen we would suggest is to clarify policy requirements related to the district's roles and responsibilities regarding the city schools grading system. So who's the owner of the systems when changes are made, and the grade change tracking, who's owning that as well. Improve Infinite Campus configuration to support consistency. So there are a lot of opportunities, we believe, to enhance the automation of Infinite Campus to prevent some of the manual entries that are resulting in mismatched grades that result in grade changes and a lot of other issues that are happening there. So there's a lot that can be done to enhance the tools that would prevent a lot of the entries that need to happen subsequently. The third initiative would be to develop and implement proactive compliance monitoring programs focused on grading and reporting and policy compliance, which would emphasize the appropriate use and documentation of the grade change process. Some of that would include enhancing recurring communications for each school calendar. As we know, City Schools has multiple school calendars, and to make sure that all schools are aware of what their specific deadlines are related to grade entry. So that could help maybe push some more timely grade entry. And then to standardize the school calendar tool to support grade entry and grade changes. Another one would just be to identify who is monitoring grade changes within the school district and what their associated responsibilities are. And I guess finally on that one would be to conduct grade change reviews like this one internally, just to make sure that you're always on track and can adjust before year end. And then the fourth and final initiative would be to upgrade the grading reporting policy to strengthen the underlying framework and to support the policy understanding and adherence throughout city schools. Obviously, that is in process, and so we hope that the recommendations that we put forth will be incorporated into consideration for city schools as they go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to thank really our team from A&M for your work. It makes a difference when you have actual professionals who actually have the background and the track record of analysis looking rather than kind of blunt overview look. And so we really do appreciate your work. Just one point of clarification for me, and then if there are board members who have a question, if you could go back to slide 10, just briefly, because I know that the math can be challenging for folks in the room. I just want to ask if you could walk us back through on slide 10 on the fail to pass, the actual number 4 on final grade changes. I just want you to make sure that we all understand what that means. So you can let me know if I'm saying it correctly, but what I understood you to mean was that out of, was it 18 million grades that you reviewed, or 8 million? How many was it? 18 million grades, that out of 18 million grades, the final grades that were moved from fail to pass was 4. Correct or incorrect?
That's correct.
So 4 grades out of 18 million grades were moved from fail to pass.
One point of clarification for final grades.
For final grades. And it would be final grades that would actually constitute the official record of a student. And we know that to be true, correct, Dr. Pfeiffer? Okay, so I just wanted to clarify because I know that the math can get a little overwhelming when we're talking about numbers. And I just wanted to review so that the public is clear. When we talk about mass grade changing, we are talking about 4 grades that benefited students out of 18 million. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to the board to see if the board has any questions for our colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please.
I'll lift up just one thing. It may be helpful, I sit on the policy committee, so it may be helpful to give the public just a sense of how these recommendations might appear in some of our future policies when we go back to review policies. If you could give us just a sense of that, so I think it'd be important to lift up as well.
Or would you like that to come from me or?
Yes, Dr. Pfeiffer, I think it'd be more appropriate.
Okay. Yep. We are working on the policy and had a great time with the students last week as they gave input at the forum. So a good example of what we might put in our policy or regulations would be additional guidance on how transfer, what we need to do with grading when students transfer and they have grades from one school and then grades that they have at the second school that they attend. We know that a number of the grade changes that were seen were a result of students transferring and then the grade needing to be adjusted because those grades from the first school came a little bit later. So that might be something that we would provide a little bit more guidance on so that schools would understand how to appropriately include those grades. I think that when we think about the grading windows, I think that there's an opportunity for us to be clearer about what those grading windows mean in terms of when teachers should stop putting grades in and when that window closes. So that's something that could also be incorporated a little bit more clearly in our regulation. I think another opportunity for us is just to clarify, you've heard us talk about non-final grade changes or final grade changes, and that can just be a little bit tricky as we navigate the policy and regulation language. So we would like to be a lot clearer in that and even rethink the way that those grade change forms look to make it clear for the staff using them.
Thank you so much. I think between what we've heard here today from the work that Alvarez and Marsal has done to look at the records, along with just our practice here in city schools to ensure that we're updating our policies, should give all of us on the board and the public, our schools, our scholars, a great level of confidence in the integrity in our grading policies. So I appreciate the work that has been done here to really look back and look ahead. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, thank you to A&M, and thank you to Dr. Pfeiffer for her leadership in this effort. I know that this could take a lot of work to do this level of lift and analysis and working. All of our OAA folks who had to lift all of that data, I want to thank them. And I want to thank our folks in schools who take this very, very seriously. And I did appreciate the quote from your analysis that city schools, Baltimore City Schools grading policy is stronger and more comprehensive than many peer districts. So thank you again for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Oh, let me see your question. I'm sorry, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, you had a question, sir. I missed you.
That was okay. I just wanted to know how much of this is influenced because we have such a mobile society of students, of students moving from one LEA to another, and we have a lot of students coming in country new. I teach ESOL, so I know that they would come in. How much of that is being calculated as we move forward in developing policy? Because that is going to have an impact.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I believe that it was about 75% of the final grade changes that took place outside the window were tied to transfer students. And so we will continue to work both on the technical side to make sure that our systems are working well, but I think also just working with schools and with families on that process and just being able to communicate what they should expect as a student comes into a school from somewhere else, whether it's in this district, in the state, from another country, to be able to just make that process clearer and a little bit easier for everyone to implement.
Sorry about that, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Thank you again. I do also next want to give a special shout out to Principal Laura Deanna and team at Eager Street Academy. For those of you who do not know, Eager Street is our school for incarcerated youth, and Eager Street received accreditation from the American Correction Association. It's one of the only K-12 schools within a school district to actually be accredited, but also we should be very proud to know that Eager Street was one of the few schools that actually received accreditation with 100% on their evaluation. So congratulations to the Eager Street team. We're very proud of the work they did, and I promised the young men that I had a chance to meet with last week. And I said to them, I know that you do not see everyone on the outside who is cheering for you, but I am going to, and I promised them at this board meeting that I would share this great news and share the fact that I had a fabulous visit. The work they have done as young people who are really in a place where they can make solid choices now, was just fantastic. Their spoken word, the writing on the walls, we have gifted artists. So it was just a reminder to us all that none of our young people are worthy of being thrown away. Absolutely. All of our young people have potential, and I had a chance to see it. So I promised them I would do that. And so I did want to just highlight that this week as well. I didn't get a chance last week, but I do want to give a brief shout out just to the full team who put together our winter graduation ceremony, the young people who came out, their families. I was unable to attend because I was out of the country. And I want to thank the commissioners for being there, Dr. Dabrowski and Dr. Place-Jose, I know were there. Dr. Duran is frequently there, so if she wasn't there last time, she normally is. But I want to thank the full team for being there. And I also just want to shout out former Principal Valentine, just because she has organized this event so that it is meaningful for our young people, so that they know whenever you graduate, you don't have to graduate in June for your family to be happy. You don't have to graduate in June for it to count. You don't have to graduate in June for us to celebrate you. And I just want to thank former Principal Valentine for just the work she did to make sure that this was as meaningful an event. Our mayor showed up as well, so shout out to Mayor Brandon Scott for that. But just really wanted to highlight the work that the team has done. Again, there are no young people that are worthy of being thrown away. All young people, right, have potential. We just have to give them the space to make the good choices, to get second chances, and to turn things around. And this is one of the best ways that we showcase this each year. So thank you, everybody. And then finally, on Friday, March 1st, we celebrated National Employee Appreciation Day. It was great to be able to have breakfast for our team. In addition to providing free hot breakfast to all district office staff, we also unveiled our Employee Appreciation Board right out here on the first floor of the district office. It's a real colorful display of thank you notes to district employees for their outstanding service to staff, student, and families of city schools. Just want to appreciate already on your way out, make sure you take a look at some of the notes of appreciation. You might want to jot one down for someone who either you work alongside or who has served you well. And this is something that we're launching, and that will be up. But I want to thank Nicole Alessi and our wellness team, our staff wellness team, for their work on this. And this concludes my remarks for this evening. I will turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. I'll now review the consent agenda. Board colleagues, please let me know if you would like an item removed, and please state your question or your reason why for staff. Item 9.01, FY24 Quarter 2 Budget Amendments. Item 9.02, SY24-25 District Calendar. Item 9.03, Policy ICA, School Calendar Second Reader. Item 12.01, Fuel Education, LLC. Make sure your mic, Commissioner.
I would like that pulled. Questions involve the justification of pricing, the placement during the school day or after. It wasn't clear in the meeting before the Teaching and Learning Committee, and the proof of capability to perform moving forward. So I know they have a plan, but I want them to clarify that. And that's it.
Thank you. So we'll pull item 12.01 for Commissioner Bay. If any of, we'll make sure the staff is prepared when that time comes, after we finish public comment. We'll now move into public comment. Speakers will have 5 minutes from our recognized groups, and others who have signed up for public comment will have 3 minutes for public comment this evening from our stakeholders. We'll first begin with the Baltimore Teachers Union, and it is a video from Jocelyn Providence, who is representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. .
Good evening. My name is Jocelyn Providence, and I'm a high school math teacher in Baltimore City. And today I'll be giving public comment on behalf of the Baltimore Teachers Union. The topics that I plan to address are curriculum and maternity paternity leave. As a teacher, I understand the importance of high quality instruction for our students in our schools. However, what I don't understand is why the district continues to value the expertise of overpaid, nationally made, one-size-fits-all curriculum over our experts right here in our classrooms in Baltimore City. Math and ELA continue to be a big push for curricular support, but we continue to not value the experience and expertise of our hardworking, dedicated teachers right here. We have seen how these one-size-fits-all models that are made by companies who focus more on profits rather than people do not truly value our students, our teachers, and our community. This is shown by even the recent change in the Wit and Wisdom curriculum. The change happened nationally because of the push from the conservative action group Moms for Liberty, who have filed lawsuits and have been pushing for elected officials that Wit and Wisdom, quote, is constantly looking at ways to inject and normalize things like gender identity, Black Lives Matter movement, and LGBTQ by weaving it into the curriculum, unquote, as stated in the New Yorker article from 2022. Identity and history should always be a part of our learning and reflection, and for a national curriculum to dismiss this shows their true motivation, money, and not actually having an impact on our students' learning and lives. The district's response to this curricular change was also very troubling, simply emphasizing that this shift would not, quote, impact the standards or the rubric, unquote. Maybe by the district standards, this is an insignificant shift, because your focus is on the result. But as teachers, we know and understand the importance of the process and the how and the why students are learning, which is why a curricular shift like this is so significant. Let me show you briefly what I mean by this, and I plan on emailing this to everyone on the school board. Right, so as you can see here, the original here focused on the emphasis on thinking from the perspective of Ruby Bridges as she stops in the crowd on her way to school, explain her response to injustice by describing her thoughts, feelings, and actions. The new version of this here is imagine a day at school. What is your favorite activity? Use first-person point of view to write a narrative moment that describes an action. As a teacher, we know that the dismissal of this intentional language that was recently there is important to point out and takes away from the narrative that we are telling our students. Another example here on the left, we see that the first option was to look from the point of view at the end of the book when she goes back to school, show her response to injustice. Same thing, option 2, Ruby, when she walks into the empty classrooms, show her response to injustice. The removal of that intentional language in the recently updated of now just identify an unforgettable lesson you learned in this module. Use first-person point of view to write a narrative moment, right? The removal of the language is intentional, and we as teachers and educators need to stop allowing people to tell us how we should be talking about our history and our identity with our students. Also recently, there have been a shift for changing our math curriculum. In Search, the district did a comprehensive review process that determined the 2 finalists for the K-8 and the high school curriculum. However, this process did not allow for any opinion of current teachers in the city. How can you have a comprehensive process without including our voices? Why aren't we emphasizing the expertise of our students and our teachers, thinking about even the Baltimore Algebra Project that exists in Baltimore City? And finally, the school board will continue to hear about this from me as they have in the past couple of years, along with district staff and Dr. Santelises. It is immoral for us to continue to force Baltimore City employees to split their paternity and maternity leave if they are married to another Baltimore City Public Schools employee. Commissioner McFadden, how would you feel if your federally allotted leave was taken from you? Commissioner Roberts, how would you feel if your partner could not take their federally allotted time to spend bonding and helping you to heal after giving birth to a child? We as educators know how important the first couple of years and even the first couple of months is for the health and well-being of a child, and yet you all continue
Thank you for those remarks. We will transition to our next specialized group. Is Ms. Phillips here representing the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, or CCAC? Good evening,
Good
Ms. Phillips.
evening, everyone here. Those are virtual, and to the Vice Chair and Chair, and to Dr. Santelises. Good evening. Greetings to you all. My name is Sheila Phillips. I'm the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee Chairperson. On last night, we had our meeting right here in this room. It was a wonderful discussion about the policy on grading. Dr. Pfeiffer did a wonderful job explaining everything that we needed to know and help her to assist her to move forward in the changes that may need to be done. Also, on last night, we talked about the ESY program, that's extended school year for children receiving specialized services. This is the time when those decisions are being made by the different schools. So we had a conversation with Darnay Bushrod and Laura Huffman, and they broke everything down for us simply so that all the parents and those in the room would understand what ESY does and does not. They talked about the time frame that it will be a 5-week program, and that it would be 8:30 to 1:30, and Monday through Thursday, off on Friday. Also, we had Miss Sandy Jacobs came. She talked about the update on the Kerwin Commission implementation. She broke that down to us, and now we understand what we need to do and how we are to move forward in that plan to continue to serve the citizens, the school students, and the instructors in Baltimore City. I want to take time. Last time I was here, y'all clapped for me, and I got all messed up there. Thank you again for the clapping. But I want to take time to thank the board and the powers that be that we have an executive director interim, Miss Denise Mabry. I am so happy that she's in that position. I worked with her over the years, and I know we're going to continue to work together to make sure the special ed department come up to par and everything be done well. I am excited and I'm glad. Been a long time coming. Things change and things happen, but I think you made a good choice, and I'm glad to work with her. Also, on MSDE sent out a survey for parents to fill out in February. I want to remind the parents how important this survey is to move funds around to support the children receiving specialized service. If you have more than one child receiving services, you need to do a survey per child, not per household, but per child. Also, there's going to be a great transition fair going on April 25th at the Sheraton by the Special Education Transition Team. Anybody interested, you can reach out to me. You can call me, or you use my LCCAT email, and you can reach out to me and we can give you further information. Next month, April 8th, our meeting will be here in this building, but it won't be in this room. It'll be in room 212 or even room 300. I'll let you know. Also, we got our Facebook page up and running as I promised. So if you need any other information, you can contact me there. The other thing I want to let you know, on April 8th, we're going to have it's Autism Awareness Month, and we have Mr. Neil Leichner from the Pathfinders for Autism. He is a program director. I've worked with him over several years. He's a good person to talk to if you have children have autism. Also, and that night, we have Parent Place of Maryland. They're going to be talking about healthcare transition. It's very important for the the parents to know that the health care that they have between 18 to 21, when you have a disability, it changes significantly after 21. So I also have a man named Tom, I'm going to pronounce his name right, Tom Kukan. He's an insurance broker. He's also going to come and talk about health care, even life insurance, where most time people can't get it. They won't give a person with a disability life insurance.
Thank you, Ms.
But he
Phillips.
can move it. So thank you so very much. I do apologize for taking a little bit of time. Have a wonderful evening. Happy Women's Month.
Ms. Phillips, before you leave.
The survey due, the survey.
The survey is due to be filled out between now and the 1st of May. I want you to do it as soon as possible. Don't wait. Early is better.
And
Thank you.
one other quick question. So for the transition fair, can you just let the public know a little bit about what is contained at that transition?
Okay, the transition fair will have employers, resources, vendors, all about, they're gonna provide food for them as well. But any child is leaving the school system needs information and resources in order to put them in the right place. If they're going to get a job, or if they're going to go to a separate day center, they're looking for employment. And we have all those things that's going to be happening for them. April 25th, 8:30 to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton in Harbor, 300 South Charles Street. And if you need any more information, you can also look on the website as well.
And I just want to lift up that, post-secondary success and transition is really important for our students, for all of our students, especially our students with special needs. And so parents having that ability to have the information that they need to really focus on what's after high school, I think is critically important. So I appreciate you bringing that here.
DDA indoors will be there as well. That's a whole nother.
Thank you
at
so much,
another
Ms.
time.
Phillips.
Thank you.
We're going to circle back because I moved out of order. Is there someone from the Associated Student Congress of Baltimore City, ASCBC, with us tonight? Anybody from ASCBC?
Yep, that would be me.
Huh? Are you online, Cameron?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Cameron. Good evening.
And you can see me too, right?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, commissioners, Dr. Santelises, and other members of City Schools community who are attending tonight's meeting. My name is Cameron Askew. I'm a student at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, and I'm currently serving as the secretary for the Baltimore City Student Congress, or ASCBC for short. Tonight, I'm delivering testimony alongside Justin Lyles on behalf of ASCBC's Legislative Affairs Committee. 2 weeks ago, we had the opportunity to represent our city and schools at the annual conference for the Maryland Association of Student Councils. Baltimore City was the largest delegation, hosting 20 schools. I had the rare opportunity to collaborate with talented student leaders from across the state and participate firsthand in the legislative process. For this invaluable investment in the future of student leadership for the city and for this world, I would like to thank both City Schools leadership, the board, and the school administrators who supported this experience, as it shows a commitment to developing student leadership in Baltimore City schools. I would also like to thank the Baltimore City student delegates who represented us at the state level last week. They have not only maintained, but advanced the reputation of Baltimore City as a legislative and representative power on a higher platform. And I believe that Baltimore City is beginning to enter the foreground in student leadership at the state level. And I'll continue to cede the rest of my time to Justin Lyles, my fellow committee member.
Good evening. My name is Justin Lyles, and I'm also a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee and a student at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. I am pleased to inform the board that tomorrow, March 13th, the Legislative Affairs Committee, along with other members of ASCBC's General Assembly, will be traveling to Annapolis for ASCBC's Legislative Advocacy Day. In alignment with the Legislative Advocacy Week promoted by the Maryland Association of Students Councils, while in Annapolis, we will have an opportunity to tour the Capitol, sit on a bill hearing, connect with the Baltimore City student currently serving as a congressional page, and Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs, and Dwana Sterrett. And meet with Delegate Stephanie Smith. We would like to thank Melissa Broom, City Schools Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs, and Dwana Sterrett, Director of Legislative and Government Affairs for the board, for helping to arrange our agenda and providing us with guidance in advance of the trip. In preparation for tomorrow's Advocacy Day, our committee and the students who will be attending have been studying two pieces of legislation critical for the well-being of our schools and students. The Healthy School Facilities Fund, which has directed $45 million a year towards repairs to Baltimore City schools buildings with molds, leaks, heating and cooling failures, and other safety issues that could lead to school closures, and the blueprint for Maryland's future, which has finally provided Baltimore City schools with fair and adequate funding. After so many years of underfunding within the Legislative Affairs Committee, every committee member has felt the impact of aging and inadequate school facilities, as well as the impact of underfunding, which preceded the blueprint for Maryland's future. I can speak directly to the importance of one of these bills. I attended Glenmount Elementary Middle School for 8 years. Doors and windows were frequently not opening, which created a safety issue and distracted from our educational experience. Recently, the doors and windows were replaced through the funding from the Healthy School Facility Fund. Even as middle and elementary school students, we noticed a difference right away. The repairs gave us a new love for the building and reduced distractions from what was important, education. Many of our aging facilities need equally critical repairs to address mold, failing ceilings and roofs, and unreliable HVAC systems, fundamental facilities issues, which can close schools and cause students to miss out on their education. These are crucial and immediate issues that need to be addressed and resolved. Other members of our committee are prepared to speak to the transformative impact that the Blueprint for Maryland's Future has had on the educational experience. It is vitally important that Baltimore City students understand and are prepared to speak on the importance of these two pieces of legislation in order to protect them into the future. Thank you for your time and allowing us the opportunity to update you on our efforts to advocate for Baltimore City students. To the members of the public and the city schools community who are listening tonight, if you know Baltimore City youth who are interested in working on the behalf of Baltimore City students, please encourage them to visit ASCBC's website. ASCBC's spring election is approaching soon. The application served on ASCBC's executive board opened last Monday and closes April 8th. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Cameron and Justin. We will now hear from Angie Winder from the Parent Community Advisory Board, also known as PCAB. Good evening.
Good evening. It is good to be here in person. I'm limping, but I'm here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angie Winder. I'm the chair for the Parent and Community Advisory Board, affectionately known as PCAB. First, I'd like to say happy National Reading Month and Music in Our Schools Month. So great job to Yorkwood Elementary School. That is where my baby attends. So I did two-part. So again, congratulations, and it is not easy to perform, so they did a great job. Next, I will come before you today to provide a few PCAB updates, but before I do, I'd like to give a shout out to the students attending City Schools pre-K programs, as it was recently announced in the news that they have outperformed the state overall. That is awesome news, and we are super proud of this great accomplishment. Additionally, we'd like to thank the continued partnership with City Schools, the Board of School Commissioners, and the leadership of Dr. S. At our last PCAB meeting, we had Ashley Turnier from the Office of Human Capital, who provided an engaging focus group on what we'd like to see in the next Chief of School Police. We also had Andre Riley, Executive Director of Communications, who briefed us on the portrait of a graduate, and Dr. Rachel Pfeiffer, Executive Director of Academics, who provided an update on policy IKA, grading and reporting. At our next meeting, we will receive an update on the Kerwin implementation plan. Having conversations like the ones mentioned help us to be a voice in the decision-making and policies that affect students, as well as keeping parents and the community informed and engaged. PCAB is improv of 14 board members. We hold monthly public meetings on the third Thursday of each month, and we are always seeking volunteers to join our committees. Speaking of board members, PCAB recently appointed 4 new members to join our amazing team. Today, I would like to acknowledge them and announce them. They are as follows: Dr. Dante Ryan, which is a CEO appointee, Marvin Price Jr., which is a Disability Rights of Maryland appointee, Malik Parker, ACLU appointee, and Shartae Anderson is an ACLU appointee. If you are here or online, feel free to come on camera and smile. We are excited to have them join our PCAB family. Lastly, I want to just mention that we have relaunched our monthly PCAB e-newsletter. Just wanted to encourage you all to visit our website at pcabbaltimore.org. That's P-C-A-B, Baltimore spelled out.org, to subscribe to our e-newsletter and to learn more about PCAB and what we do and our mission. As you can see, we're working hard for our scholars in collaboration with the community and the district. And I think it has been mentioned several times a day that it truly takes a village. Thank you for your time. I actually wrote it down this time because I went over, but that's how much work we do and exciting things that we do. But again, that concludes my PCAB updates and public comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wanda.
Thank you.
I will now turn it over to the Board Executive Officer for public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Our first public comment will be live in person from Sajaya Abduram. Please correct that pronunciation. I apologize. Agenda topic is Eid holiday. Are you here? Okay, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Sajaya Abdurrahman, and I'm currently a junior at Baltimore Design School. And today I'm here to talk to you about why I and many other Muslim students in Baltimore City schools believe that schools should be closed in observation of Islamic holidays of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. I often hear about the importance of creating inclusive spaces for learning. Inclusion at schools is important because it allows students to feel a sense of belonging and feel seen and understood for who they are. As a student of a Baltimore City school, there's no time when I feel more reminded that I'm different than during the Islamic holiday of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, one of the most important times of the year for me as a Muslim. Not only does this system's policy not feel inclusive, it feels discriminatory. Some schools essentially penalize Muslim students for observation of our beliefs. When I observe Eid, I'm not only marked absent, but I also miss critical lessons when they're delivered, and I am required to make up the lessons and work assigned in my absence. This, however, is not required of students of other faiths when they observe religious holidays such as Christmas, Easter, and Hanukkah. As religious holidays seem to be strategically scheduled during our seasonal breaks, I want to be in class for the lesson when it's delivered. It's not fair or equitable for lessons to continue while we're absent. I remember in 2022, there was a news segment on WJZ announcing that Baltimore City Schools apologizes for scheduling conferences on Yom Kippur, known as the holiest day in Judaism. I remember thinking, how could the administration have regrets over scheduling conferences during the Jewish holiday, but continue with no regrets to require Muslim students and staff to be in school on their holiday. In conclusion, I believe that school policy should be a true reflection of the diversity of the student body and staff, with thousands of Muslim children enrolled in Baltimore City Public Schools. Closing schools in observation of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr is the first step to recognizing our growth as a community and will help with encouraging a more inclusive learning environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment will be from Carmen Diaz, and this will be a video. The topic is Success on the Test Resources for Multilingual Families.
Hola, mi nombre es Carmen Cuellar Díaz. Tengo un hijo en Comodores.
Hello, my name is Carmen Cuellar Diaz, and I have a child at Commodore.
Estuve en la conferencia en éxitos en las pruebas, pero no estoy de acuerdo porque no entendí nada.
I was at the conference titled Success on the Test, but I'm not okay because I did not understand anything.
Y no solo yo, todos los padres no estamos satisfechos.
And it wasn't just me. All of the parents were not satisfied.
Fuimos a la reunión con los niños y ellos estaban separados de los padres.
We went to the meeting with our children, but they were all separated from the parents.
Y después de un largo día de trabajo, salir a la reunión y decir que hasta las 7:30 les iban a brindar la cena y los niños con hambre.
And after a long day of work, to go out to this meeting and be told that not until 7:30 were they going to give us dinner, and our children were very hungry.
Eso no es justo. Tuvimos que ordenar sillas y mesas para podernos reunir como el grupo de comodores.
And this is not fair. We even had to organize our chairs and our tables just so that we could sit together as a group from Commodore.
Yo pido como madre de mi hijo en comodores que las reuniones sean claras.
I'm asking as a mother of a child at Commodore that these types of meetings are much more clear.
Y que entendamos en nuestro idioma para así saber y estar preparada.
And that we are able to understand in our own language so that we know and we can be prepared.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Diana Desierto, and this will be a video as well. Topic is international teacher recruitment, retention, and teacher shortage.
I am Diana, a speech language pathologist for the district. I'll be speaking about my concerns with international teacher recruitment and teacher retention. On behalf of the International Committee, thank you for finally listening and adding language to our contract for the first time ever. We're glad to meet periodically with Human Capital. However, I don't think that's enough. Since the district appears to acknowledge this severe teacher shortage and continue with international recruitment, we are asking for more support for our international educators from the day that they sign a contract to the day they arrive in Baltimore. We need continued support as our alien educators try to navigate through this district and country. The recruiting process has been messy for years and has been a huge financial burden on our international educators. The thousands of dollars that these corrupt agencies charge for our educators to even get here is insane. Many of our international educators are using their upcoming bonuses on their visa renewal fees. We find this shameful and wish our educators did not have to use their wages to pay to work here. In January, a $1.4 million procurement item on visa immigration support for employees was passed. Please consider using all of this money to assist our international educators with their visa fees, placement fees, recruitment fees, orientation fees, and for an immigration lawyer to help with citizenship and other legal issues. We know that you're recruiting special educators and ESOL teachers by offering them H-1B visas. This is great. However, we ask that you offer H-1Bs to all international educators. as those with J-1 visas have no path to citizenship and are not receiving any guidance on what to do after. Most are just leaving this district, so how is that helping with retainment? As I've said before, it is egregious how our school district continues to hurt the international teachers over and over again. This is not how to retain our most dedicated and committed international educators who want to be here. We're asking for more transparency from the board to make sure international educators receive a contract at the time of hire. We ask that they have something in writing about their salary and the date of their first pay. We ask for early and timely information regarding the requirements and steps needed to satisfy teacher licensing requirements. We asked for a professional orientation program that includes ongoing support and addresses student demographics and culture, classroom management, performance evaluations, and parent and community relations. We asked for cultural orientation training, including information on local community resources, like public transportation, libraries, rec centers, and banks and medical centers. And when appropriate, spouses and children of international educators should be included in all of these orientations. We hope that you continue working with the BTU International Committee and find ways to make our international educators feel safe, appreciated, and welcome in the United States of America, and especially here in Baltimore City. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment will be from Philip Leaf. We'll be commenting live in person. Topic is student wholeness and supportive services administrative regulation. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair McFadden, other board members, Dr. Santalisa, other city staff, those attending in person virtually. I'm Philip Leaf. I'm a resident of Baltimore County City and a long-term attending of school board meetings, although I've never sat up here before in 34 years. I'd like to thank the city school staff for creating the update of the administrative regulations for student wholeness and student supportive services. As described in the document, City Schools has an extensive plan to provide supports and services that encompass wellness, restorative practices, school climate, social emotional learning, behavioral and mental health needs, and wraparound and other services that will result in enrichment. In order to do this, the city needs to ensure that there's a capacity to integrate or braid the different funds and programming that actually come through 3 different fiscal years. As you are well aware, the city-state has a July through June fiscal year. Our federal government, which puts lots of money in directly, but also through money that goes to the state, that goes to the city, has supposedly an October through September fiscal year, but they still haven't passed the budget for this fiscal year yet. And then many businesses and foundations have a January. So the school staff have a really difficult problem, and obviously the board, since you have to approve the expenditures, of really braiding together these things that sometimes start after school. October is not a great time for funding for schools because the schools have started. You usually do training in the summer, hiring people in the summer. So it's really very, very difficult. And I just want to, again, point out that the need to have the resources to be able to do this. We also have community school councils that have family and community members on all the councils and students on the councils for high school and middle schools. For our schools to meet the requirement put forth in the administrative regulations, it's going to be important that training, coaching, mentoring is provided to the students, the families that are on the community school councils so they can best participate. Training that's similar to that's being provided to principals and the staff that are sitting on there. It's also important to recognize that not all schools are serving students with the same needs. Not all schools have the same number of students. You need to make sure that the allocation of resources is commensurate with the needs of the school, regardless of the number of students that are there. In order to identify existing needs, inequities, and opportunities, and to monitor changes, data for students and schools are needed. These data need to go beyond things like monitoring chronic absences to differentiate people students who aren't coming because of fear of going to school or coming home from school, or transportation problems, or chronic health problems in a younger sibling where the older sibling is having to stay home and look after his or her younger brother or sister. Last point, given limited time, many working with our students and working in our schools are not city school employees. This is a great asset and resource. However, it is important for those working with our students to have adequate training, mentoring, and coaching if City Schools is to indeed to achieve the desired and best possible outcomes. Many opportunities exist. The states have recently expanded money for mental health services in schools, Department of Juvenile Services, Department of Social Services, and other state agencies are now funding.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next public comment is from Deborah Miranda. This will be a video. Agenda topic is success on the test resources for multilingual families.
Mi nombre es Débora Miranda, soy papá de la escuela de Commodore. Tengo 2 hijos estudiando.
My name is Deborah Miranda. I'm a parent at Commodore, and I have 2 children who are students.
Fui invitada a la conferencia Éxitos en el Examen de Recursos para Padres. Yo llegué a la escuela de Commodore a las 4 de la tarde. Al evento llegamos a las 5. Salimos del evento a las 7 y yo regresé a casa hasta las 8.
I was invited to the conference titled Success on the Test, Resources for Parents. I left Commodore at 4 p.m. We arrived at the event at 5 p.m. We left the event at 7 p.m. and I didn't get home until 8 p.m.
De eso para mí no hubo nada, ni un volante, ni una atención. Me sentí excluida.
For me, there was nothing. Not a flyer, not attention paid to me. I felt excluded.
No entendí nada de lo que se trataba. Se supone que eso era para nosotros.
I didn't understand anything, and supposedly this event was for us.
Para transmitir el conocimiento para nuestros hijos.
In order to be able to transmit and share knowledge for our children.
Me gustaría para un próximo evento nos tomen en cuenta con más atención latino.
I would like that for the next event, you all take us into account with more attention for the Latin community.
Thank you. Our next public comment will be Elena Martina Raimundo. This will be another video. Topic is success on the test resources for multilingual families.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Elena Martina Raimundo. Yo tengo una hija en la escuela de Commodore. Mi hija se llama María Marcos.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena Martina Raimundo. My daughter's name is Maria Marcos, and she goes to Commodore.
Yo estuve en la conferencia de éxitos en los exámenes.
I was at the conference titled Success on the Test,
la cual no entendí nada de lo que hablaron.
Of which I didn't understand anything of what they were talking about.
Porque no especificaron bien lo que es la información.
They did not specify well or explain well the information.
Para mí, que no se logró el objetivo que ellos tenían planeado.
For me, they did not achieve the objective that they had planned for.
De llevar la información clara a los padres de familia.
Of being able to bring this information to the parents of the families there.
A mí me gustaría que tomen en cuenta
I would like for you all to take into account the following.
Las quejas, o más bien que tomen en cuenta las opiniones de los padres.
Our complaints, or better yet, that you take into account the opinion of parents.
Y que organicen bien las actividades y que busquen más estrategias para llevar bien la información.
That you better organize the activities and that you look for strategies that better give us the information.
Y que los padres entiendan claramente lo que ellos quieren decir o especificar a los padres y que ellos capten la información.
And that you check that the parents understand and capture and comprehend the information.
Solamente, gracias.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Earl L. Amin. Be commenting live in person, and the agenda topic is school calendar. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Dr. Santelises, and board members. I'm here today because for 30 years, more years, I've been leader in the Muslim community. And it is very important for us as a Muslim community, as you heard the young lady speak about how she's impacted. Other school systems, be it New York, Philadelphia, Newark, New Jersey, have on their calendar the Eid al-Adha and the Eid al-Fitr. We would have many more Muslims here, but at 7 o'clock, it was time for us to break our fast today. And as you can see, I'm still hoarse. But anyway, I think that it is imperative that you give us a favorable decision to put on the calendar and close the schools so that our children can enjoy those days. The Eid really means recurring happiness. It means recurring happiness. And so it is a gayful time. It is a time when we spend an inordinate amount of time with our families, with our children. We exchange gifts. It means so much to us. We live now in the most diverse place in human history, and that's the United States of America. Racially, culturally, and religiously. So I respectfully request that you honor our request as Muslims here in the city who have grown since I've been in leadership for 30 years so much, inordinately. Our grandchildren now are students, and they need to have the support from the Muslim community, but also from the Baltimore City school system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner, 1 second, Dr. Jenkins, Commissioner Muhammad.
Thank you, Chair. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Muslim community for coming out in numbers in late-minute surprise. But your commitment to our children, your children, is very obvious. We have grandparents here. We have parents here. We've had children here. And from my count, we had over 36 adults in the room representing the community. That's great representation, and I want you to know that it is heard, and we will respond because your commitment is seen not just through verbally, but you're visibly being here is ibadah. You were fasting. These people have not eaten today. They stopped eating at some 6 a.m. this morning. And for us to have grandparents here assuring that their young people's needs are met is a testament to your success of raising great students in a great district that's yours, Baltimore City. And we will assure that you continue to send your students to our district and know that they are protected with us. Thank you for coming out. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Commissioner Muhammad. Dr. Jenkins?
Yes. Our next public comment is Moses Hamet, and this will be an email that will be read by Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, and the topic is school calendar.
March 12th, 2024, to the Board of Education. On behalf of the undersigned leaders from the Muslim institutions and communities across Baltimore City, on March 12, 2024, we would like to discuss the inclusion of El-Fitr and Eid al-Adha as a day off for students and staff in the 24-25 school year. Over recent months, leaders from the Islamic community have worked to listen to many of our constituents and their families to hear about the issues impacting their lives. In the last 2 weeks leading up to Ramadan, we have conducted a citywide listening assessment with the Muslim families and their number. Their number one issue, and their number one issue raised was to have off from school at El-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. This key concern has been repeated, the need for El-Fitr and Eid al-Adha to be included as a day off from school in the Baltimore City Public Schools. We have heard stories about the impact on Muslim children and staff members. In particular, the feeling of missing key lessons and lack of recognition for a growing Muslim population in Baltimore City and in this region. The Maryland Muslim Council estimates that there are more than 350,000 Muslims in the state of Maryland, with tens of thousands of Muslim families in Baltimore City alone. We hope to discuss concrete actions that can be taken in the coming months related to the school calendar. We plan to share some of these concerns directly in testimony at the March 12th Board of Education meeting. Best regard, Moses Hamid. I'm sorry about that. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, our last public comment will be from Harry Gray. He will be commenting live in person. Topic is nutrition program. You will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Dr. Santalese, Board Chair McFadden, and the Board of Commissioners. This has been a pet peeve for me the last couple of years. I'm at Mergenthaler High School, where we have, I feel, the best culinary arts program in Baltimore City. So I'm a little biased. But one of the things that our kids are not getting is the nutrition. A lot of our kids are not going to the cafeterias. When talking to them, they pretty much, they don't like the options. I'm not going to say they don't like the food. They don't like the options. So looking over, the menus, things, we have, some vegans that they feel like their choice of food is not being served. We're also getting food that pretty much a lot of our kids are not used to at home. On a high school level, you have, in scholastic athletics. Well, we can't put our best on the field against the state if our kids are not eating. So right now, what we did a couple of years ago at Maryville, we actually went to the Family League of Baltimore after school, and they provided free meals for our kids while we did study hall. That was cut out. So once that was cut out, what did our kids do? They went straight to the McDonald's and, the fried chicken restaurants. So I think we need to really look at what we're serving and how we can actually get better of what we're serving. I did a little research about a year ago, and I spoke to a gentleman, Mr. Joe Urban, down in South Carolina. And I had pictures. If the board would love to see them, I can email them to you. One of the things he did was a great presentation. All the schools in this district had a great presentation. But one of the things that they're still doing that we have stopped doing, they are still flash cooking. And we're not. We have stopped that. And I know it's due FDA, USDA requirements, but I asked him, are we under the same guidelines? He said yes. And he was willing to come up to show and talk to the board and the nutritionists for Baltimore City Public Schools on how we can get better. But if the board can kind of look at that to maybe even survey our kids, because as they get older, they definitely kind of stop eating more. And I also felt that's a great way to get our kids and teachers bonded in the cafeteria or in the lounge when you're eating. I think when you have a productive board meeting, the first thing you do is actually get food. That's what you probably your best meetings when you got the food. You pay attention. So when we're trying to get the kids out the hall, we just need to feed them. So thank you, and I hope you listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our last public comment.
Thank you. Does anything, and thank you to everyone coming tonight to speak during public comment. Does anyone want to pull anything from our consent agenda? Vice Chair Roberts.
I want to pull item 9.02, the district calendar for question.
Thank you.
Read the question. So understanding public comment tonight, and the board has received a number of requests to update the calendar to accommodate religious holidays. That is certainly precedent setting. I'd like staff to speak to the equitable approach to one, adhering to the COMAR standards for requirement instructional hours, but also just the equitable approach to maintaining the current version of the calendar.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more question. And if considering tabling this vote tonight, what would be the impact on the final approval or the proposed version moving to the state for final approval?
Thank you for that, Vice Chair. We did pull also item 12. Anyone else? We did pull item 12.01, fuel education. So let's start with that. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, if you want to just raise your question one final time for the sake of staff, but I also want to wait for the staff to make it to the, thank you, you're coming over to join us. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Yes, I have a couple of questions about this. One, this tutoring is about tutoring, and before we have dealt with tutoring, and I was not given a real clear idea of scheduling, because when they collide with the school day, or is it after the school day, I really wasn't clarified on that during the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. I had that, and I had another question. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get out there to my sent items. Thank you. Yeah, but we can start with that one.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Matt Barrow. I am the Director of Differentiated Learning within the Teaching and Learning Office, and part of my work is overseeing and supervising our district's tutoring initiative. So to answer your question, the tutoring that would be provided through Stride would occur virtually during the school day. Specifically, during the school day would depend almost entirely on the actual individual school's schedule. So that would be just coordinating between the vendor and the school to figure out what times would work. Those sessions would last approximately 30 minutes each, at least 3 days a week, possibly more, but that again would depend on the school-based factors.
The second question was, you have a plan for effectiveness measurement, but was there a history of effectiveness in Stride right now with the Baltimore City Schools?
Not for their tutoring within, this would be new work within Baltimore City Schools. That's why measuring the actual implementation, using this opportunity to really understand and learn if this is effective or not, could inform future investment decisions. If that were a model that's shown to be effective, we measure everything from, you know, how well they're actually getting students to the interventions, how frequently, how consistently, how are they able to enroll students, even to breakdowns of, you know, what's their cost efficiency. So we fully understand all those pieces, that plus understanding the outcomes and the impacts that can be correlated with participating in this program. Students tended to grow, you know, faster or more than students that maybe were in other programs. We do that for all of our tutoring work. We currently have 17 partners in the district. Last year, we were able to enroll over 15,000 students in tutoring, and that was during the school day. So this is a very wide initiative, and this would be one tool in that toolbox to be able to just differentiate how we're able to provide that support to students.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for item 12.01? Thank you. Item 9.02, I think that may be Dr. Pfeiffer coming back up around questions that the vice chair just raised regarding an equitable approach to the observances, maybe some clarification between observances and days when students are off, in addition to the 180-day requirement, any parameters around state law, in addition to perhaps putting this on our future meeting agenda and how that will impact the submission of our calendar to State Department for approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Roberts. Again, my name is Rachel Pfeiffer. I'm the Executive Director of Academics, and I'm here with my colleague.
Hi, good evening. My name is Simon Birnbaum, and I'm the Director of Grading, Assessment, and Scheduling.
So we currently have a number of days that we have identified when staff or students may be observing a particular religious holiday. Those are the days that we've identified, and I'll walk through them in a second, are days. Would it be helpful if I put them up on the screen? Okay, let me do that. Give me 1 second.
Dr. Pfeiffer, this is Jonathan. I can share for you if you want.
Jonathan, that would be great if you could. Thank you.
You got it.
I'm on slide 11 of the 24-25 calendar. So as Jonathan is pulling that up, we have days when school is in session, but we know that there are religious holidays being observed on those days. And there are a range of dates from the fall through the spring. And what we have worked to do is to clarify our policy in this current round of policy revisions to, thank you so much, Jonathan. The dates are on the screen, to be able to clarify for schools what those days should look like. And so first of all, we give up to 3 consecutive observance days as excused absences for our students who may be practicing various faiths that have those observance days that are highlighted here. And so those are days that they are absent, but it is excused, and we recognize that they are celebrating or commemorating that day. We also have certain things that we ask schools not to do on those days. So we ask schools not to give tests or exams unless there is a testing window in which one day is equal to the next. We don't use those days to give one-off tests or exams. We also don't use those days for athletic competitions or events at schools that would just happen one time. So field trips, evening events, parent-teacher conferences, Mr. Birnbaum was reminding me earlier, are all things that we don't want to hold on those days. We want to find alternate dates because we recognize that members of our community are out for observance. And then, as you know, just want to highlight that the asterisks show us when the observance days start the evening of, and we keep that in mind as well. So that addresses those days when school is still in session. We do have certainly some days in the calendar when we are off that may coincide with other religious holidays. Passover is a good example of a holiday that this year does not coincide with spring break, but sometimes it does. And so so that is a time when we are off, when depending on what you're celebrating, that may be a time you're off, or you may have to take an excused absence.
Thank you for that. I have two follow-up questions, but one, could you share with us the impact of if we were to honor all of the religious holidays that are represented within our student population, and what that would do for the entirety of the academic school calendar?
Yes. So right now, just to talk about approach for our calendar, our approach has been to ensure that school is closed prior to Juneteenth. That is a day that we have identified as a district that we are closed. And so we try not to get close to that time in terms of our calendar, but we have well, please.
There's about 15 days that are listed, between 12 and 15, I think. That would have to be either the school year would have to be extended or start earlier, or other breaks shortened in order to accommodate all of the holidays listed in the policy right now.
Thank you. And what is the last date that the proposed calendar needs to go to the state for final approval?
I will have to get back to you on that, and I'll do that in writing.
Do we need to vote on this tonight?
We typically submit it to the state in April.
So we have our next board meeting on April 9th?
So, and we certainly, I think that will give us time. I will follow up if that's not the case. But we took some time to just engage briefly outside, and I think can continue to have additional engagement and conversation between now and then.
Who's saying what?
Excuse me, I just want to make sure it's clear. So the board calendar, I'm sorry, for school year 24-25 is not going to be on the consent agenda for this evening then? I just want to make sure.
I was asking for a point of clarification.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I'm now a little confused. So.
He said you're down. Right now, it doesn't look like we will miss an MSD deadline to submit the calendar.
That was my question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or thoughts?
Just one real quick question, and that is, when you have communicated that certain things are not to take place on these holidays, is there compliance, or is there a check of compliance? Because I know good and well that depending on a person's background, they either accept or don't. And so I don't know whether or not we have any sort of regulation that says, or is it just a suggestion?
So just to highlight, in the calendar policy update, we list out explicitly, just as I stated, the tests and examinations, the evening events and field trips, alternate dates for afternoon extracurricular, athletic, and community events, and the mindfulness that some of the observance days begin at sundown. I think that in situations, I will say that I've received a number of emails from schools asking for clarity recently. We've been able to provide that clarity as it's been needed. We've had great conversation with our athletics department to be able to provide that clarity so it's coming from multiple directions. And our district ombudsman is a great partner in being able to flag things as she receives concerns. So I would hope that and would encourage any community members who experience something different to be able to reach out so that we can provide more clarity and more guidance so that we can continue to get it right.
And I will say, Commissioner, that there are even some that come all the way up to my office from a variety of faiths. So when that does, and as Dr. Pfeiffer and Simon have referenced, our ombudsman, Karen Lawrence, does a great job flagging. And even in the case where it does reach my office, it's pretty swift, pretty clear. And I will say we have entertained it from a variety of faiths. So that, like I said, even when they come up to my office, there's generally a response very quickly.
And also, I'll add, it is explicit in policy ICA, which is on our agenda to vote on tonight. That is on consent. But for the sake of, thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer and team. For the sake of transparency and partnership, we do have a meeting scheduled with several members of our Muslim community, and it is scheduled for this week. I want to honor that commitment to our stakeholders prior to us voting on this particular item, which is the calendar, not necessarily the policy. And so I'm motioning that we move item 9.02 to our next meeting, which is in April. Is there a second?
Second, Mohammed.
Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
And I am in favor. That motion passes unanimously with those members present. Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer, and thank you to our advocates tonight.
And
Is there-
if I could just add, so in relation to the policy, so in policy committee, we have discussed, pretty in depth in terms of like the ramifications of different types of holidays, making sure our board policy is as up to date as possible. So what we see tonight, I encourage our public to take a look at what's in the policy that is really clear, reflected in our updated policy. So just wanted to highlight and lift that up for this evening.
Thank you. And I also just want to add that, I think the board is committed to listening and engaging to members of our community. So I want to make sure that we honor that. And so thank you to the board for moving the agenda item. Thank you, team. Is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
So move, Sally.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally. All in favor, Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Commissioner Coy?
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sally?
Yes.
Commissioner Slater Harrington?
Yes.
I'm also in favor. That motion passes unanimously with members present. We're now to move to our information item for tonight, which is 10.01. Thank you, Vice Chair. And that is policy ADF, first reader, wellness, nutrition, and physical activity.
Good evening, everyone. Let me just share my slides. Give me 1 minute. All right, good afternoon. I'm Ann Rosenthal. I'm a specialist within the Food and Nutrition Services Department, which is part of finance. So I'm here with Chief Doherty. Thank you to everyone who has already weighed in on this policy and its administrative regulations, including some folks who are here tonight. So we really appreciate your input. I'll start by offering a brief overview of the policy and its administrative regulations, and then we'll talk about some of the proposed revisions and whose feedback we've heard so far. This discussion relates generally to the priorities bolded here. So the first, second, fourth, fifth, and seventh, as the policy and its regulations have links to instruction, to supporting educators and staff, to engaging partners and families, to equal access to services for all, and to equitable policies and procedures. So why do we have a wellness policy? So board policy ADF is officially called the Wellness, Nutrition, and Physical Activity Policy, but it's often referred to as the wellness policy. That's how I'll refer to it sometimes here. This policy exists both to promote our own blueprint goals and also to comply with a federal rule, the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which is the law that essentially governs our federal child nutrition programs. So the breakfast, the lunches, the snack and supper we served at schools. This policy, as you'll see, is very cross-cutting. Policy ADF sets guidelines for everything from health education and nutrition education to physical activity, behavioral health services in schools, and other school-based wellness activities. Because it's not limited to the scope of a single office, you'll see several offices listed here whose work contributes to the goals of the policy. We note specifically the Food Nutrition Services team, Health and Physical Education, Whole Child Services and Supports, and related services. We also, both in terms of compliance and in terms of policy review, work with partners, some of whom are part of the district's Health and Wellness Council, which meets on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. And we also are very connected to the work of school-based health and wellness liaisons. So I'll talk a little bit now about how each of the teams I mentioned fits into this ADF puzzle. So I'll start with Food and Nutrition Services, which is my department. We offer, as many of you know, free youth meals year-round. The meals we serve are free to all students, regardless of household income. We're really proud of that. We're proud to have served more than 12 million meals last school year, and we hope that number will continue to rise this year. We also, beyond what's focusing on what's happening in the cafeterias, we're really focused on providing students experiential learning opportunities to connect them to their food system and to nature. We, at our district-owned Learning Farm, Great Kids Farm, and on school campuses across the district, we directly serve, last year we directly served almost 9,000 students with farm-to-school programs, and again, we expect that number to rise quite a bit this year. We hope that the farm-to-school educational opportunities are really a way to empower students to make healthy choices and to be excited to make healthy choices, both in the cafeteria and beyond, in their homes, et cetera, for the rest of their lives. So we've also invested in a number of innovations and partnerships that, again, nourish our learners and our community. Here you'll see a snapshot of Streets Cafe, our student-designed food truck. I also mentioned our collaboration recently with the Baltimore Museum of Industry to document and honor the stories of our food service heroes. And you've probably all seen their portraits outside as well in that satellite exhibit. So within academics, comprehensive health education and physical education are also key components of this policy and of ADF-RB specifically. Their skills-based health curriculum for K through 12th grade includes a focus on the core concepts and skills listed on this slide, everything from substance abuse prevention and interpersonal communication to disease prevention and control and advocacy. This team also ensures that students from pre-K to 12th grade receive a physical education with a curriculum that's comprehensive and standards-based, and that it includes items listed here. So everything, again, from recommended equipment lists to trainings like first aid, CPR, and AED use. The work of the Offices of Whole Child Services and Supports and related services is also key to highlight here. So whole child services and supports is within the school's office, and related services is within the Special Ed Department of Academics. These teams focus and collaborate on initiatives like the school wellness support teams, which are highlighted here. These teams aim to make clear to the school community who the go-to folks are in that school building when mental health concerns arise. We also partner with community organizations on the mental health front. These organizations offer in-school mental health services for students, in addition to training and consulting with school staff and other members of the school community. On the physical health front, the Office of Health and Specialized Student Services also works to ensure that health suites meet guidelines for health services, including mandated items such as hearing and vision screenings, etc. So I'll talk a little bit now about the proposed revisions to both policy ADF and its 4 accompanying administrative regulations. The purpose of these revisions are kind of fourfold. We're reviewing the policy and its regulations first to comply with state rules and federal school meals legislation. Like I said, federal school meals laws basically say that any district that participates in child feeding programs and serves meals in schools needs also to have a wellness policy that includes certain components. So we, for example, are audited on that along with our normal school meal programs. We also want to address some of the challenges we've seen to safe and healthy meal environments. We want to align language and guidance with current policies, practices, and priorities in the district to make sure we don't have anything that reflects outdated priorities and initiatives. And finally, we want to incorporate board rules on related topics and make sure we're streamlining as much as we can. So first, a few basic revisions we propose that revolve around definitions in the policy. We've added a definition of health education and student wholeness. We've revised the definition of physical education to align with state guidelines. We have revised the definition of the school-based wellness committee. This is essentially a group that's required to exist by the policy, but we want to make clear that schools can designate a team or a committee or a council that already exists at that school to handle the responsibilities of wellness if such a group already exists. So we don't want them to have to create a parallel structure just for the sake of policy compliance. We have also added a definition of sunscreen, since a provision related to sunscreen is also included in the revisions you'll see later on. This is a requirement of state law. Also in the policy, we clarify that nutrition and food systems education should include and reflect the cultural diversity of the Baltimore City community. We know this is really already a key tenet of our Farm to School team's work, but we want to codify it in our policy. City Schools has championed equity in so many ways, and we've made sure really to center equity in our educational programs, whether it's lifting up the voices and experiences of farmers, entrepreneurs, and activists of color for our recent African American Food Waste Summit, or it's making sure in our outreach that we're really giving every school and every community a chance to participate. We really just want to make sure this is official and prioritized in the policy. As I've described, City Schools is very honored to be able to provide free meals to all students, regardless of household income. We do this thanks to what's called the Community Eligibility Provision, which is basically a federal rule that allows districts to opt in for blanket free meal coverage if the poverty level reaches a certain threshold. So we just want to make clear in this policy that we plan to continue doing that for as long as we have the option. We also want to clarify that students are able to opt out of sections of the health curriculum in compliance with Maryland law. So now I'll home in on each of the administrative regulations. First is the administrative regulation focused on implementation and monitoring, which focuses on really how the rest of the regulations are carried out. So we have updated in the revisions the list of folks who make up the District Health and Wellness Council. We clarify, according to state rules, that the District Health and Wellness Council needs to assess school level compliance with this policy every 3 years. The state refers to this as a triennial assessment, and we're actually going through that this year. We are also eliminating a recommendation that principals should all aim to become USDA team nutrition schools. This was like a big initiative of the USDA the last time this policy was revised, but doesn't really represent a useful designation anymore. So now moving to ADF-RB, which focuses on physical education and physical activity. We are recommending the removal of required health-related fitness assessments that do not serve our young people. To comply with state law, as I mentioned earlier, we want to clarify, or we need to add an element about sunscreen. We need to clarify that students can possess and use sunscreen without written permission from a healthcare provider. We also want to encourage teachers to promote movement breaks about every 20 to 30 minutes of seat time. We actually had similar language in the policy already about what they call brain breaks, but we want to provide clarity about what we mean here and about the fact that it's really important not only for our learning and concentration, but for creativity, for analytical thinking, for memory and attention. We also want to emphasize that middle and high school leaders should consider additional opportunities for physical activity and outdoor time during meal breaks. We know this might look very different campus to campus, but we actually, we heard this loud and clear at the student forum last week, that this really is a priority for a lot of students, and that many of them feel like they don't currently get get sufficient time basically in fresh air and outside when it might be possible. In addition, we've made some minor edits to what are identified as guidelines in the policy around physical education, physical literacy. Specifically, we want the language here to align with the purpose of phys ed, which is to prepare young people with the competence and confidence to be active for the rest of their lives. With the goal of physical literacy here and in the policy, we've called out some of the foundational components of what it takes to accomplish that. And this, again, is in alignment with Maryland law, with Comer. There is right now a separate board policy, IHCAB, focused on access to an appropriate physical education program for students with special needs. So instead of keeping this as a separate standalone policy, we'd like to incorporate it into ADF-RB, specifically to streamline. So if the board is okay with that, we'd like to move to make that change before second reader. So now looking to the nutritional piece of this policy, the Administrative Regulation RC about nutrition standards and mealtime climate. So I'll mention this policy JLCDB a few times in the next few slides. This is a policy around anaphylaxis regarding how we're keeping students with major food allergens safe. This policy is under review now, will come before the board soon, I believe. So we, throughout this policy, want to make sure the language aligns and that, again, we're prioritizing the safety of all students, including those with various food allergies. Second, state law already does not allow vending machines selling unhealthy snacks during the school day. The rules about this are very strict, and the federal and state government basically have guidelines called the Smart Snacks Regulations with very specific nutritional guidelines. We are streamlining the language throughout this regulation so that it's clear to all that vending machines in schools need to be compliant. We are also referencing and adding additional guidance on competitive foods. Competitive foods, as we've defined in ADF, are foods and beverages sold to students outside the cafeteria during the school day. So in ADF-RC, we also include additional guidance on competitive foods. We really want to make it easy for schools to comply with these rules. We don't want this to be a perpetual challenge and headache for them. So we're, in addition to the administrative regulation, we're also thinking about what kind of complementary guidance or toolkits would be helpful for both school staff and families. So there's currently no language in the policy or regulation about meal delivery services on campuses. So here we're talking about basically individual students ordering from Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, or services like these. We want to make sure we're addressing them, especially since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, when students and families got into all different routines and rhythms. This has been particularly an issue. And especially, I'll note this is especially an issue at the middle and high school level. We haven't heard about many challenges at the elementary level. So based on concerns related to a few things, we're proposing language that limits the use of these meal delivery apps to after the school day. So I'll cite the key concerns we've heard are, number one, administrative burden on school staff. So imagine a high school where lots of students during a meal period are ordering these apps, and people at the front desks and at all the entryways are kind of stretched to respond to the people arriving with the meals. Number two, we've heard about disruptions to academic time, so students being called to leave the classroom to pick up their deliveries. We've heard safety concerns around violations of the visitor policy, and also about traffic concerns around entryways and doors being opened that are not the main entrances. And then we've heard concerns about nutrition. And I'll note that we are not proposing any limits to what staff can do in terms of ordering from these services, so we're really focused on students here. Parents and guardians are still able and welcome to bring food to the schools, as they always have been, and students are also welcome to bring in the morning anything they'd like, to consume during the day. We've learned, I'll note that most school leaders have already moved to restrict these services at these schools. So a district-wide policy would allow for a consistent, streamlined approach across the district that we believe would promote the health and safety of our students. In terms of food, in the context of celebrations and rewards, we know and research shows that introducing and reinforcing food as a reward and as an incentive in classrooms is not helpful to building a generation of healthy learners. So we want to encourage staff to offer non-food related incentives, and that is that's listed in this regulation. We also note, though, with the caveat that if food is offered in a classroom on an occasional basis, it cannot be withheld from certain students as a disciplinary consequence. And again, if it's offered or wherever food is present in school buildings, we want to make sure we're aligning with policy JLCDB. That's, again, this anaphylaxis policy under review now. So we're making sure to keep students with allergies safe. I'll move on now to ADF-RD, which is the fourth of 4 administrative regulations, so we're getting there, on student support services. This regulation, if you've reviewed the red lines, has the most robust proposed changes, but they mostly aim to outline in more detail the district's commitments that already exist to different elements of health services and supports. So we want to, in general terms, underscore our big picture commitment to providing student support services that are culturally responsive. We also want to highlight important elements of the district's commitment to wholeness and connect to other relevant policies and regulations in that realm. We want to center our commitment to restorative practices. So we draw an explicit connection to policy JKA. And we clarify that appropriate staff will receive training on implementing trauma-informed interventions throughout the district. We've proposed additional details also in ADF-RD about the administration of medication and student health services more broadly. So for example, there's guidance in this new regulation now on students who may need to self-administer medication and what the protocol is around them. We also describe language that's required by Maryland law, and that also incorporates some board rules on specific health-related protocols like those listed here. So students with asthma, students with HIV/AIDS, we want to make sure that school leaders know what the proper protocols are to keep students safe. A few final changes to mention on this regulation. We propose adding language about our approach to students who may have do not resuscitate orders due to life-threatening health issues. We've also added a clear description of what the home and hospital program does, and also the role of schools in ensuring a smooth transition if a student is transitioning, say, back into a school from a home and hospital setting, to make sure that we're optimizing student learning and minimizing disruptions. If you are not familiar with the home and hospital program, it involves basically services and supports for students who are not able to learn in a school building as they may have in the past. So they may be spending time in another care facility before they can return to school. We're also highlighting, as part of the proposed revisions, that we follow Maryland law and recent MSD guidance around administration of medical cannabis to qualifying students. So as we propose these revisions, we have been working according to the district's stakeholder engagement protocol for policies classified as tier 2, like ours. So listed here are the groups whose feedback has been solicited. And then in this gray box, you'll see some additional groups and subject matter experts who have been consulted both this year or in years past, and whose guidance has been incorporated. And I just want to note, so since we initially basically highlighted these two groups, so students and then school leaders, we knew we needed, when we had to submit these slides for first reader, we had not yet participated in the student forum, and we knew that was on the horizon. So student feedback and then consultation conversations with school leaders are still ongoing. We've had good first steps on both fronts, but we have heard loud and clear that additional feedback is needed, for example, on the meal delivery front. So we're still prioritizing these two threads, basically, but we did have a successful engagement session at the student forum last week. It was really great. Students, like I said, had a lot to say about more opportunities for outdoor learning connected both to meal times and to curricular subjects. We heard mixed feedback on the meal delivery front. So it was great to get a better sense of their concerns, and we look forward to continuing that engagement. I will not go through every bit of feedback we've received, but I've highlighted some of the stakeholder groups and the feedback we've heard, and then how we've responded to them up to this point. We look forward to incorporating more feedback prior to second reader, but I'll note that one kind of recurring theme was about what's listed in the top left, so concerns about how this policy will actually be implemented and enforced. In other words, where are the teeth here? We've tried to incorporate language throughout that makes it really clear who's doing what, who's responsible for what. The language in the existing policy is a little bit vague sometimes, so we'd like to add more clarity there. But like I said, we are still interested in hearing more feedback. So I'll just flip back to that slide. We've heard from PCAB and the BTU, a number of board members at various points. We've heard from PCAB and the Chartering Operator-led Schools Advisory Board. We've heard from some school leaders, and like I said, have a plan to reach more. We've heard from the Equity Advisory Committee, and I didn't list here, like I said, some of the other student engagement we've done. So like I said, we really appreciate everyone. I'm joined by Chief Doherty, but also by lots of people in the room and online who have contributed to this policy in some way or are connected to it. So because it's so cross-cutting, it's taken a lot of people's commitment. So thank you all, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you all very much. I see Commissioner Sally. I see Commissioner Coy. I'll first lean Commissioner Coy to the members of the policy committee. I know that this has come through policy, and I'll come to Commissioner Coy, and then I have some thoughts. And I want to make sure other commissioners, yes, sir, Commissioner Muhammad raises some points. Commissioner Esposito, did you want to lift first as the chair of the policy committee before Commissioner Sally?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the team for their work on this because, yeah, like they said, it does cover a lot of areas. And I'm definitely looking forward to some feedback from the other commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Sally.
Yep, similarly, so just want to thank Mr. Rosenthal and the team just for the breadth that this covers, and recognizing fully that there are a lot of different components of city schools that have to be covered here. So one of the things I do want to encourage our board members to look at really carefully are the red lines, because the red lines in some cases reflect things that we expect students to know and do. Other things are focused on protecting our school, our scholars. So other things focus on school conditions for our scholars as well that they're experiencing, and making sure that the adults in our building have the support and resources to carry out these things with fidelity. So just want to lift that up and encourage everybody to make sure that they're looking at the red lines, reaching out to Ms. Rosenthal with additional feedback and questions. And I do appreciate just the willingness to entertain the feedback that's been provided by both the board to date, as well as the broad set of stakeholder feedback.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
thank you for all the work that is going into this and to the policy committee. I know as with other policies, specifically Commissioner Sally, I know you've raised this up, but the linkage between the different committees, you know, and the safety and wholeness committee, given the nature of the content here, right? Obviously, historically, much of the content of this policy in particular comes out of food, nutrition, and that work. But given the emphasis and the interest of the board over the past year in safety and wholeness, I think taking the opportunity, you know, as this is coming through this process, to really look at that portion and see what could be and maybe should be enhanced in those ways, and thinking a little bit more, you know, expansively perhaps than might otherwise be reviewed.
I appreciate as a foodie, I appreciate the detail given to the work around the importance of food and nutrition in our schools. So I want to thank you for that effort. I also want to raise, just for public note, that I'm requesting a meeting with the safety and wholeness team, hopefully as a whole, where we can address some concerns around assuring that the work is as expansive when we talk about the behavioral needs, and there are certain things that were taken out that we want to assure aligns with our SEL priorities. We do not want to lose that. So we want to take advantage of this opportunity as it's being reviewed to really assure that it aligns with the work that we're doing, and particularly some of the work that we've seen in the past couple of weeks through wholeness. So we're just making that aware to the board as a whole. And hopefully you will have the Safety and Wholeness Committee as a whole to be able to meet with in the next couple of weeks prior, for sure, to the second reader.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Mogg.
Excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Mohammed. Dr. Judkins, when is the next time that the Safety and Wholeness Committee meets?
For the public or for?
Just when does the committee meet again together? Of this month?
Do you want the rest of the show progress?
No.
We don't.
Okay.
Joanna, would you mute for us, please? So the committee meets on the 21st of March. Is that what you mentioned? Is your team available to join that meeting?
I believe so. What, is there a time yet for those meetings? 4 to 5?
Thank you.
Yeah, we can make ourselves available. Thanks.
To have that discussed at Commissioner Mohammed, as you chair, to put that on your agenda prior to it coming back to the board for second reader. And when does it come for second reader?
April 9th.
The first meeting in April.
Yes.
Right, so it's perfect time. Thank you. So let's make sure that that happens. Any additional questions or thoughts? Thank you very much. Thank you to the team.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for your work around this. And thank you for being willing to collaborate with our newest committee that is shaping up to be a very vital committee to the work that we do here in city schools. The Operations Committee will meet virtual. And mind you, everyone, this is our only full public board meeting during the month of March, as the last week in this month is spring break. And I know no one's looking forward to that. I know no one's looking forward to spring break. But we're not, this is our only public board meeting. However, we will still meet in committee, and the Operations Committee will meet on the 19th at 10:30 a.m. Policy will meet the same day at 4:00 p.m. And then we have Safety and Wholeness. That committee is meeting on the 21st. Teaching and Learning will meet April 2nd at 3:30. And then the next meeting of the board as a whole will be on Tuesday, April 9th at 3:30 in exec session, and then 5:30 in public. Is there anything else for the good of the body? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Kenyatta Bay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Slater Harrington, all in favor, please indicate by saying yes. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned
Yes.
at 8:44. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Any